Welcome to this very special Amazing Race 7 episode of URT number, the Amazing Race podcast from Reality TV Warriors. My name is Michael Harmstone, and joining me as always is the Canadian who knew not playing golf would work against him at one point in his life, Logan Saunders.
Afternoon.
And I'm very pleased to say that joining us from the cast of Amazing Race 7 is Kelly Parkinson.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Little treat for everyone to end the season.
Well, thanks. I'm excited.
You are our treat for the end.
Well, I'm honored to be the finale, the big closing. Maybe I can win this one. Can I win this last finale?
Yeah, like if there's
podcast
another
with
plane,
y'all?
we're not gonna hold it for Uchenna and Joyce this time.
There you go.
You're the only one that gets to be on it.
Don't make me think about that part again.
So I guess the first question is, what have you been up to in the past 13 years?
Oh, wow. I've had lots of children. I've got 5 kids, and I got married a wonderful man named Scott Parkinson, and he's in the ministry. He's a pastor, and we've got 5 children, one which we have adopted from India, which actually kind of all goes back to my Amazing Race experience, actually, since India was one of the places that we visited. And I just love being a mom, and I get the privilege to stay home, and I homeschool my children. We're in our 3rd year of homeschool, and started a nonprofit in which we help orphans in India. And it's just been an amazing but fast 13 years.
I was reading that you've been to India at least a dozen or so times since your time on The Amazing Race.
Yes, that's true. I usually go twice a year now since we started our nonprofit. It's kind of a funny story. After doing The Amazing Race, I come home and I'm describing the experience to my family and friends when I'm actually allowed to talk about it. And I told, all of my close friends and family that I loved every place we went, enjoyed all of the experiences, but I would never go back to India again. That one time in India was good enough for me. And of course, you know how the saying goes, never say never. Because I just found myself back in India about a year later after being there, because they had a horrible tsunami, and I went back to do some relief effort. The tsunami actually happened right after we filmed. We were there, I think, late November, early December, and the tsunami hit just shortly after. And so I went back almost a year later after that, doing some relief work, and just fell in love with the country and a heart for orphans. And so we adopted one of our daughters from there, and now we have a nonprofit that is really trying to rescue and help girls over there, girls especially that come out of sex trafficking. And so now I get the honor to go back 2 times a year and just make sure that it's all running and helping the girls that we're servicing right now. Wow,
that is some awesome work to be doing in the span of 13 years.
Yeah, it's been a wild ride, but I just am thankful for all the opportunity and the experience. And really, I think a lot back whenever people ask me about our nonprofit, I just always go back to The Amazing Race, because really that's kind of what opened my heart to the world. I had never been out of the United States before we had filmed the show. And man, my heart just burst wide open just for all the different people that are out there and all the different cultures, and just realizing how spoiled we can be as Westerners and how we take a lot of things for granted. And so I'm just thankful now that I get to use that opportunity to give back.
Some of the other contestants we've interviewed, typically they watch their run on the show and then they go back to their regular lives. But sounds like that is definitely not the case for you. You really made a permanent change in your life after your experience on the race.
I think so. I mean, it really, really impacted me. And, like I said, I was really just touched by what I saw all over the world, and slowly but surely, it just kept making steps and kind of narrowed my focus in on India. I kind of laugh all the time with my husband, because one of my favorite experiences on the show was while we were in Africa during our mandatory rest time. And I would love to go back to Africa and do more work there, but my heart is just in India, and I can't shake it.
Wow. How were you originally cast for The Amazing Race?
Well, I started watching the show, I guess towards the end of season 4, and I just got really into it. I'm a pretty competitive person, and I've always enjoyed television, and just started watching the show. And when season 5 started, And I guess it was probably, I could kind of relate to Colin and Christy, her being the pageant person. And I just remember thinking, I could do this. I know I could do this, be on this show, just thinking more like competitive wise, not that I thought, they would pick me for the show. And then, of course, I guess like everybody else, you watch the show and you imagine yourself in it and what you would do in those situations. And so that's just the kind of things that I was thinking in my mind. And then, of course, at the time, I was dating Ron. And so I would get him to watch the show with me some. And he would say, yeah, that looks like fun. And I asked him several times, I said, let's apply to be on it. And I really kept telling him, I know they're going to pick us because they're going to pick you, because at that time, he had just come home from being a POW. In case you forgot that part, Logan.
That has slipped my mind completely over the years. I had no idea.
No, but so I just thought because he had a little bit of celebrity status in his own right, that they would probably pick us because of that. So I told him I'd do all the legwork. I filled out the paperwork, I did the applications, and then of course we had to make a video. And we made this video actually at the CNN offices in Atlanta. They let us borrow a bunch of their news footage, and at that time it was a presidential election, and we did this big spoof with like Bill Clinton saying things about me, and oh gosh, who was that man running then that was kind of crazy? He would yell.
John Kerry, Howard Dean.
It was Howard Dean. And so we just used all these different clips, and we thought it was like the best video. We thought it was so funny. We were so proud of ourselves. Well, we turned the application in, and I just knew we were going to hear back from them. And they never called, and they never called, and they never called. Now, in the meanwhile, Ron and I break up. But anyways, they eventually call. We get a phone call. I do, and Scott also gets. I mean, not Scott. That's my husband. Ron also gets one, and they just say, "Hey, we've got your application, and we're really interested in you, but we don't like your video at all." So we were just kind of shocked by that because we had worked so hard on it, and we just thought it was great. So they said, we want to fly you next week to LA, and we want to come for you to come here and interview in person, and we'll probably redo your video when you come. And so, Ron and I had to do a lot of talking because we had broken up and just trying to decide, if this is something we wanted to do. And we both decided it was. And so the next thing we know, we're both meeting at the airport in LA, and we interview, they film us doing a video. And the only thing that we did was we sat on a couch and he played the guitar, and I sat there and laughed and smiled, and that was it.
So Chappelle's show was all over Howard Dean impressions, but apparently not Elise and Bertram over at CBS.
I guess so. So, they didn't like it, but apparently maybe our paperwork got us in, or maybe some of Ron's celebrity status got us in. But I'm just thankful it got us in, because it just, like I said, an experience that I will never regret ever having done.
So you and Ron got back together just during the race, or was it essentially like it was already over when you guys were on the race?
I think it was pretty much over, but I know in my heart, and I think everybody could probably tell watching the show, that I was still hoping that something would change, that it would work out between us. And so my parents actually, when I talked to them about going on the show, they all were like, yes, you should do it, but don't try to get back with him. Just do it as like friends and just be yourself and, do the show. But I do know in my heart that there was a part of me that was hoping that maybe something would work out at that time. But
you can't help but feel that way when you get to travel around the world.
Yes.
And you guys actually were very close to having a very short run on the race, because you guys survived that first round by just seconds in the foot race against Ryan and Chuck.
Chuck, yep. Oh, yes. And I could not believe that we were, I don't know, I went in with a lot of confidence, because I just thought, and preparing for the race in my mind, even though I've watched it on television, physically, I was just trying to, like I was out running miles and running with backpacks, on my back, just trying to train in that way. But immediately I learned when we got there, it was much more of a mental game than it was a physical game. And I was not prepared for that part. And it was a shock to me because I really kind of went in with confidence thinking that Ron and I were going to do really well because we were physically ready, for this. And we're both competitive and we're strong. And so that first leg was a good awakening for me to realize I've got to really turn my brain on here. And it's a mental game. I've got to be thinking ahead of everybody. So that foot race down to the end, it was just heart-wrenching because I really hated to see Chuck and Ryan go too. They were from my home state of South Carolina, and oh man, that was hard to watch them go.
Do Ryan and Chuck play the what-if scenario of what would have happened if they had reversed spots with you guys and they had made it to the final three?
Who knows? I don't know I have not talked to them in a long time. It's probably been about 10 years. But they helped me with a big fundraiser that I did for a child abuse shelter in South Carolina. And they would laugh and make jokes all the time about, like, what if we just would have ran a little bit harder? And of course, Chuck and Ryan would pick on each other. Like, well, if you didn't eat all those donuts last week, you could have run faster, So I guess actually in that part of the leg, being able to run and all that training I did beforehand did help me not lose that leg of the race. But man, that was pretty intense.
Yeah, there was a lot of foot races in your guys's season, but yet after that first round, it seems like your guys's initial expectations came true because after that first leg, you guys never really falter below, I think, 4th place for the rest of the season.
Wow, you're better at statistics than me, but I just because I think we won first. I'm trying to remember what leg we won first in, and where we were. Jamaica, I think we were.
Oh, Jamaica, yes. The shortest leg ever to air in Amazing Race history, where you guys win a leg, gets cut down to, I think, 25 minutes on TV or something ridiculous.
Wow.
Weirdly, Logan and I were discussing this last night. Like, had you guys not come in 10th on that first leg, you basically would have had the best average of the season. It was very close between you and Rob and Amber towards the end.
Oh, wow. Yeah. I didn't even really think about it like that. So you're making me feel better about my racing. Yeah, I guess we did do fairly well because we hung in there.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And you guys also won that first leg in Botswana. I think it's the one where Brian and Greg had that
they crashed the
unfortunate.
car.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Now it's all coming back to me.
That tends to be the start of our interviews with people from the first 10 seasons. It's like the first few minutes, they're just slowly having everything, the trauma, the happiness, and all the excitement just slowly get back into their mind.
Yeah, so now I'm going to be dreaming about this for sure for the next few weeks.
Was there any behind-the-scenes stuff related to Brian and Greg's car crash? Did anybody get briefed on, hey, be more careful for the rest of the race?
No, I don't remember any of that kind of talk because I think it was just a accident for sure. I don't think anybody got in trouble for it or anything. Now, I do remember Brian and Greg saying later, and I may not be quoting this exactly right, so because I'm trying to recall this from many years ago, but the cameras weren't on when they crashed, and so they had to go back and redo a crash for the TV.
How do you do they just flip the car over again?
Well, that's what I asked. I was like, how did you do that, guys? And they just said we had to just pretend, and they like shook the camera and just kind of added, I guess, some special editing or whatever. But I mean, the wreck really did happen, but they just didn't have the cameras on, so that they had to go back and kind of pretend.
Yeah, they even had Brian or Greg screaming right in that scene. So I can't imagine right after you crash a car that production is expecting you to pretend to scream just like you did during the car crash.
Yeah, well, I remember Botswana, that was like my most favorite stop, and that was, of course, the mandatory stop. And man, we just got to experience a beautiful part of Africa on that mandatory rest. But Brian and Greg were there because normally the teams that lost, they were taken away like immediately, and we never saw them. But they were still hanging around. And that was kind of not typical. So I'm walking over talking to him, and he was like, yeah, they didn't get our crash, so that's why we're still here. And so I guess they did just have to go back out and pretend. So I remember when watching it on television, just trying to watch and see how they did it, since I knew they had kind of refilmed that part.
Did Brian and Greg happen to have more clothes on after they were eliminated and hung around with you guys at the end of the next Botswana leg? Or did they refilm the car crash while they're still in a toque and shirtless and in their boxers?
I don't know. I don't remember all of that, but no, they didn't walk around without clothes very much, around our pit stop areas. So no, they were more clothed. And those guys are awesome. They are so funny, and I don't talk to them a whole lot now, but a couple of years after the race, I went out to LA and I got to see them, and they're just great, great guys, always making you laugh. They just have the best personalities.
Yeah, even I think Brian has now become almost as famous as Rob and Amber in the form of appearing on several episodes of The Big Bang Theory.
Yes, and then do you remember seeing him in all those Budweiser commercials?
Not specifically, but I know he has appeared in a lot of... I have a feeling that the commercials probably haven't aired here in Canada.
Oh, okay. Well, they were pretty hilarious, and it was always just funny to watch him. And then every now and then he'll appear in something else that's like kind of serious, where he's not even being funny, and it just makes me laugh when he's like, looks like some insurance salesman or something, being really serious. But there he is, and yeah, he's really just made a lot of success for himself. That's great.
Yeah, he has quite the acting range by the sounds of it. Did you get to know their good friends, Megan and Heidi, while on the race?
Not really well. They weren't on there, I guess, super long, because they were off second, right?
Yeah, right after Ryan and Chuck.
Yeah, but they were just very, very kind and just sweet girls, and really everybody on the race. I really enjoyed hanging out with them when we got the chance, to hang out. But I didn't really get to know Megan and Heidi that well.
Brian and Greg got to know them a little bit better, I guess, in the long run.
I guess so. It was so funny because, when you watch it on television and then you experience it, like I said, it's just you walk away differently with a different takeaway than what sometimes is aired. And I remember thinking Brian and Greg kind of like flirted with them and thought they were cute, but I never thought it was like over the top or anything. So, but I mean, man, 2 cute guys, 2 cute girls, and they were all single, I think. So, they probably really enjoyed getting to know each other.
Yeah, I think Brian, I'm looking at his filmography right now, and he was on a show called Hot Neighbors and Concrete Blonde. So I guess it explains why he was good friends with Megan and Heidi during the course of the season. Your season filmed well before the explosion of social media, and now contestants get reactions from social media for pretty much doing anything on the race. What were some of the reactions you got with you and with Ron being a POW while running the race?
Well, I got mainly through email, and then of course there was all these forums and things where people were talking about the show. But I did get a couple of emails from random people, and oh man, I actually just got one 3 months ago from somebody through Facebook that said they had just watched my season and how disrespectful I am of our military. And so
he was called Logan Saunders, wasn't he?
So it was, that kind of stuff that just, and not everything was bad, which was interesting. Some people would be real supportive. I wouldn't let a man talk to me that way either, and that part always made me a little sad because I just hated that's what people saw most in the show, I guess, it really was kind of wrapped up in our relationship, our part, I guess, that aired a lot. I just hate that it kind of came out so negative that way. But yeah, people definitely got offended by some of the things I said or did. And so that's, but I'm just thankful. Maybe I should be really thankful that Facebook wasn't out then, because I probably would have gotten really blasted.
I'm in disbelief that over 13 years later, and you're getting an email through Facebook about a random episode.
Yeah, I was too. I mean, I almost responded, and then I thought, you know what? I just don't even think I have the energy to go there. It's like my life is so different than that now, although it is a huge part of my life. That's definitely not who I am, somebody who disrespects the military. And I think that may be one reason why I really struggle to watch the show is because I feel like in some ways, not that I didn't say those things, but, you watch it and you might get an opinion about somebody that maybe is not necessarily who they are. And I think I found myself kind of getting wrapped up occasionally when I watch reality television, getting wrapped up into people's personalities. And then in the back of my mind, I'd be like, well, what if that's not really who they are? And so I think that's probably why it's hard for me to go back and watch the show. That may be part of it. But yeah, it is random to get something like that 13 years later. But even, let's see, about 2 years ago, somebody sent us an email and said that this guy had written an article about me on The Amazing Race. And basically it was an article that had to do with marriage. And basically it was putting me down a little bit. And then I think putting Ron down too, and just talking about how when a couple argues, like how would you want to get married? And I didn't even really see the article. Somebody forwarded it to me and my husband ended up writing the guy and telling him, Ron's loss was my gain. And he ended up reaching out to us and redoing a new article. So it was just interesting. Like, like you said, it's been so many years, but still, I guess people can go back and watch it now anytime they want. So it's still fresh for them.
Yeah, that's still brand new for them, and that you and Ron's relationship playing out on screen is still impacting how people view marriage and stuff. That's that's a lot to take out of a few episodes of The Amazing Race.
Yes. But it was cool to connect with the guy who wrote the article. He ended up really apologizing to me and wrote this article about how you shouldn't judge people, and realizing that even when somebody may say something that's rude or you don't like, they may not be that same person. Just like we've talked, time changes you grow as a person, so it was really neat just for him to go back and write all that and connect with them. And so now we're actually friends.
Wow. After your time on the race, did you do any promotional commercials like Brian did, but instead do it for Turkish makeup or cosmetic commercials?
I can't believe no one ever asked me to do a lipstick ad. I mean, I just can't believe this. But no, I did do a few local commercials, just like car dealerships and various things, like around where we lived. So that was fun to get to do some of those things. But no makeup ads.
How was the race easier or harder with getting all of your stuff taken away? Because I feel like that would help speed up being able to run from place to place and not worry of having to keep track of too many possessions along the way.
Yeah, it definitely got easier when it came to that, and you immediately learn. I feel like on leg one, you start learning right away. You don't need everything that you have with you. And Ron tried several times to get me to get rid of stuff, but I felt bad because we paid a lot of money for some of that special gear that we had. So I thought I hate to throw it away or to leave it somewhere, but you really don't need much at all. I remember thinking that about Megan and Heidi, I think, or it could have been Deb and Bianca. They had just like this tiny backpack. And I think she had like one other change of clothes, and that was all she had. And we had sleeping bags. We were ready to like be stuck in Iceland somewhere in the snow. We were ready to like go to the desert. We had all kinds of gear with us. And yes, it would have been a lot easier. I mean, as it got taken away, it did get a lot lighter. But not having money to get around where you need to get around is very stressful.
Did you guys? I know we were talking to a team that actually won the race after getting all their stuff taken away twice during the season. They said that people were extremely generous and they ended up with more money than the other teams around them. Did you guys end up getting a lot? Rely on the generosity of the people you encountered in the last couple of legs to make up for your lost funds?
We did, and really, I felt like we only had to do that for the one leg because then the next time that we were on it, it got taken away in Turkey, and so I think the next place we went was London. Is that correct?
Yep.
So I felt like in some ways we had it easy because in London everybody spoke English, and it was very easy, to ask for money in your own language. And I couldn't imagine it being in another country, but people were very, very generous. But we really, once that leg was over, we really didn't have to ask for extra money after that. So people were so generous that got us through. Now, I will say London, everything was so much more expensive than some of the other countries we were. So that part was stressful because we needed to get extra money. But
yeah, we can vouch for that.
Yes, we can.
People were very generous, and it was just amazing to watch people give like that.
Hey, what was that one meal that we had in London, Michael? Wasn't it like we went to Pizza Hut and it was the equivalent of about close to $30 for what we had?
Yeah, that sounds about right. It was the buffet, wasn't it?
Yes, it was the buffet, yes.
That was when your friend from back home joined us as well.
I think he missed out on the buffet.
I remember just being down in the, well, I'm going to call it a subway, but I know it has probably a different term. Yes, London Underground. And I remember being down there and begging people for money, and everybody was just handing us money left and right. And that was just, I just remember almost getting teary and emotional just at how generous everybody was. But after we came out of that underground, I think we were set from what I remember. The hardest part begging in Turkey was we didn't really speak the same language. And so that was hard sometimes to get money when you couldn't really communicate. But when we hit London, it definitely got a lot easier.
I feel like Jamaica would have probably been a tougher place to beg for money from people.
Yeah, I'd be like, let's go to the Sandals. Let's go find those resorts, everybody. And yeah, that would have been tough. That's for sure.
So you guys wouldn't have been in the same situation as Uchenna and Joyce, where if you guys were at that finish line trying to pay for a taxi, you wouldn't have had the same financial issue that Uchenna and Joyce did right then.
Yeah, I guess not. So they were in Jamaica then when they lost their money? Is that right?
Yep.
And then from there they had to go to Puerto Rico. But they made it. We all called up at the sugar factory. I remember that.
And then it was a 3-team race.
Yes. Yep. And we thought we were ahead because I'm pretty sure Ron was the first one to jump off of that big pier-like thing and get out of the water, and we were in our car. And then after that, it was a wrong turn to the airport, and the rest is history.
Rob gave Amber a piggyback ride after that task. Would Ron have given you a piggyback ride?
Yeah, I think so. Ron's a great guy. He's not a jerk. Yeah, you just get in the heat of the competition, and that's one thing I learned about myself for sure on that show is I'm like way over the top competitive, and I've definitely tried to work on that. But now that my kids are playing sports, it's just flying out now.
Yeah. You're the mom screaming at the sidelines?
Yes, I am the maniac mom, and I am not lying about that. So I thought I had it under control. I can play a board game now and lose and be okay, but not when my kid's on the field.
Not when it's football.
That's right.
Have you driven any more double-decker buses after your time on the race?
No, but man, I would love to, because often, I go back to India twice a year usually, and often we fly through London, and every now and then I'll get a long layover there, and I just sit there and stare at those double-decker buses. And I always tell everybody around me, like, can you believe I drove one of those? And they just laugh. And man, that was probably one in my top 5 experiences for sure. That was a lot of fun.
How upset was Ron that you got to do both the driving roadblocks during the season?
Now, what was my other one?
There was one in Botswana I think you did the one with the truck.
Now, he ended up doing it.
He ended up doing it.
I'm
which
pretty
one
sure he ended up doing it.
Oh, okay.
I have to think because it's where you went through the water in your like Humvee, wasn't it?
Yes.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure he ended up doing that one.
Okay, I'm misremembering things.
With the London one as well, Logan, we have actually been to where it was, just to point it out.
We're at that location too? Jeez. Just unintentionally.
It was a big parking lot, right?
Yeah, I deliberately took you to the O2, which used to be the Millennium Dome, which is where it happened.
Damn, that was it. Okay.
It was one of the car parks of the O2.
Oh, okay. I'm trying to remember if I did drive that car, but I'm almost positive he drove the car.
Yeah, I think you're right about that. Yeah.
Because I can't even drive a stick shift or anything, so I'm pretty sure he had to do it. And I don't remember what the question was that made you think about the roadblock.
Was because of driving a double-decker bus. Was Ron upset that he didn't get to do another task that involved driving a vehicle?
Oh, okay. Well, he did have to do that horrible eating one. And I think that was Argentina, where he ate all the meat.
One question I've always had about that Argentina roadblock over the years is, did Rob and Amber actually convince people to quit that task, or was it because Meredith was 70 and Dino is just a lot smaller frame to be able to eat all of that food?
No, I remember him convincing everybody. Like he was telling everybody to quit. And he was like, why do that? Why do that? We're all going to even up. We're all going to do this. And man, now I want to go back and watch that episode just so I can remember exactly. But no, I remember him walking around and talking to people about it. But there was one of the girls, like one of the really tiny girls, and I'm trying to think. Might have been Debbie. Yeah, one of them. It might have been Bianchi. Bianca.
Bianchi? She's got a new nickname.
Yeah, there you go. I remember her. I think she ate all of it. That she did not take the penalty, and that she ate all of it, and she never got sick. Like, I remember thinking, like, I cannot believe your body is holding all of that food down. But I'm pretty sure I remember her, because we left before she finished, but I remember talking to her afterwards, and she was like, yeah, I ate it all, and I didn't take the penalty.
And Patrick almost quit that task from what I've read over the years? Or he initially quit, then went back and finished the roadblock?
I don't remember. So he didn't take the penalty? He went and ate it?
I think the story I've read, I think it may have been in the DVD commentary way back when, was that he started the task, then decided to quit, and then he went back to it and finished it.
Huh. I don't remember any of that. Yeah, I don't remember Patrick being there. I mean, I'm sure he was. I just remember we were kind of sitting around this big, like almost like a big bonfire. And I remember Rob and Amber being there. And I'm trying to remember who all was sitting around us. But yeah, I don't remember all the exact details, but I don't remember that about Patrick.
Oh, okay. During the episodes, it showed particularly Susan and Patrick and Lynn and Alex talking about Rob and Amber a lot. That was a lot of what their footage was surrounded around in the episodes. Was that just for TV, or did they talk about Rob and Amber as much as what we saw on TV?
Well, I don't think they really cared for Rob and Amber. And I don't necessarily mean like today they might really care for Rob and Amber, but I think they were just like really focused, on the race. And I do know that once we started the first leg and you realize that they're on the show, I do know that there were several people disappointed, that they were on the show. And I just didn't really read into it that much. I just kind of thought, well, they're just like us. Everybody's got a shot. We can beat them. If we work hard, we'll beat them. And I didn't think anything about them being celebrities or anything would hinder anybody's chance at the race. But there were lots of people talking about it, to each other about how they didn't think it was fair. They didn't like it. So I do think some of that was probably true, that yeah, they were talking about it, but it wasn't just them. There were a lot of people really struggled with it and were talking about it.
Were they concerned was there almost like a metagame in a way where they were thinking that they would get a lot more TV time and get their adventures shown a lot more than the 10 other teams?
I guess so. That's what I really didn't understand, because I just, in my mind, I'm like, hey, I'm just here to race. I'm competitive. We can beat them. That's just kind of the mentality that I had. But a lot of people just kept saying they didn't think it would be fair. And I will say this one thing happened, and where were we? It might have been when we were in Chile, and we had arrived, Ron and I had arrived somewhere, and we thought we were first. And we go and we hop on this, oh man, my brain's not working. I can't think of the words for things, but basically it's like a little cart.
The funicular?
I guess so. It takes you up the side of the mountain.
It was that was in Santiago?
Maybe. I know it was in the South America section of the race, and I really think it was there. It might have been in Argentina, but I really think it was there in Santiago. But we show up, we go to get on that, and then somebody from production stops us and says, we're going to penalize everybody 15 minutes because Rob and Amber were here, but we weren't ready for them. And so it's not fair that we weren't ready, so we're going to let them have 15 minutes ahead. And yeah, and that's the only time that I really was just kind of like, what's going on here, you know? But I really believe in my heart that the show is not rigged. I don't think it's rigged. And just having been out there, you know, for all of it and having experienced all the legs, I mean, I never saw them really get an advance from production any other time, you know. And having worked with all the production people, they just were top-notch quality people. And so I guess in my heart, I want to believe that's what really happened. But I will, that one time, still, sometimes I think about it and I'm like, what happened there, you know?
At least only happened the once. It was Future Legs where they said, well, we weren't ready for Rob and Amber again, so they get a 2-hour head start. Chen and Joyce to get all of your stuff taken away again.
And I think maybe some of the racers, you know, because Rob and Amber were kind of always out in the front, and it seemed like they were always kind of catching these breaks. I think that some of them thought that maybe they were getting some extra help, but I never saw it, you know, other than that one experience, but everybody got penalized, you know, down the road. So I think that was a legitimate production thing when that happened.
And you can't help but feel that the luck balances out by the final leg of the race when they were this close to having a huge head start on everybody.
Yes. And I will say, I mean, I really liked Rob and Amber. Rob definitely is a different kind of player and competitor than I am, but he's really smart. And, you know, when he's playing a game, he's very shrewd. You know, he thinks ahead and he knows how to work people. I mean, just like the barbecue pit we were talking about, he knows how to do certain things to win a game. But in person, I think he's just a lot of fun to be around. He was a super nice guy. Amber was a sweetheart. But I will say I was really excited when Joyce and Uchenna won. Because I guess in my heart, Rob and Amber had kind of already won and had their moment. And, you know, I wanted Joyce and Uchenna to have a moment too.
Yeah, people tend to forget that when they were on the Amazing Race the first time, it was right after Survivor. I don't think Survivor All-Stars had even really, or I guess it was just after Survivor All-Stars had finished airing on TV was when you guys filmed your season, I think. Yeah,
it was very soon after, because I watched all that on television myself. And, you know, then the next thing I know, I'm in LA, you know, and of course you don't see them. They keep us all, you know, private and hidden from each other until we show up on that first day, and we're all out there by the Queen Mary together, and there they were. And I just remember looking at Ron going, there's Rob and Amber, and he didn't even know who they were. So, yeah. So it was pretty cool. I mean, I'm glad they were on our show, on our season, because I think a lot of people tuned in, you know, to watch them. They had their own set of fans, and it brought some Survivor, you know, fans over into the Amazing Race. And so if anything, you know, I look back and I think, well, that was kind of fun, you know, that they were on there. And they helped me too when the race was over and we were doing the fundraiser for a child abuse shelter in South Carolina. They came and helped with that, and I'll be forever grateful for that.
Wow, that's really good. Yeah, the next season on Amazing Race, they're bringing 3 other Survivor teams over to the Amazing Race, and since Rob and Amber they have brought in other Survivor crossover teams as well. So they're just the first of a very extended trend for the show.
Yeah. Well, it was fun to have them on there. I really, honestly, everybody who was on there, they were just great people, you know, fun to get to know, fun to be around. And, you know, we're all on that show because we're competitive. And so we all had that in common. And, you know, it was just, I have just great memories of just the people on there.
Did Rob ever give the money back for bribing the bus driver to not let people out?
Oh,
and
not
putting his own money in?
No. Not Rob, but that's what makes him a good player, you know. He's just a strong competitor.
And on TV, we saw Ray have a big rivalry with Meredith and Gretchen. Did you guys experience that in person at all, or was that just surprising to see on TV on how badly Ray wanted Meredith and Gretchen out on the race?
I don't really remember seeing that in person. Ray is probably one of my most favorite people from that season, and man, he's just a good guy, big heart, and I don't really remember seeing that in person. I do think, Ray is super, super competitive, and so I was kind of shocked sometimes to see even what I was seeing on TV because you're not always together when you're racing, so you're kind of watching, your friends race as well, and so you see certain things happen, and it's just funny because when you're in the middle of the race, just that competitive nature comes out, things fly out of your mouth. You're in the heat of the moment, and then you cross that mat at the end, and it's kind of like you're just in the neighborhood with all your friends. It's just interesting. So once you cross that mat, it's just really not nearly as competitive, and everybody's a lot more relaxed or either just exhausted, so they're sleeping, and so you don't really see that tension behind the scenes, or at least I didn't.
Yeah, because everyone except for Ray helped out Meredith and Gretchen after they had all of their stuff taken away. Was that more of a strategy because teams wanted Meredith and Gretchen to make it all the way to the final leg as I guess an easier opponent per se?
No, because I know when we helped them, it was just more like, man, that's like your grandparents asking you for help, and they were just great people. I mean, just good people. And my thoughts were, and I think Ron's thoughts were, if we were in this situation, we'd hope they'd help us. So I think that was maybe generally everybody's thoughts, but it's hard to turn down, grandma and grandpa when they're asking you for help. And I think if I remember, she even had this horrible cut across her face. Is that right?
Yeah, I was about to say, grandma would have had her head wrapped in stitches and.
Yes. So she was just set up right, to ask for help. So, but I don't really remember seeing that tension behind the scenes. But everybody is thinking, they've got to be thinking ahead for the race. And so Ray was probably just thinking, not that I don't want to help them, but I want to win.
Are Meredith and Gretchen still kicking around? Because they would both be in their 80s now, if I'm not mistaken.
They are.
Still in their easy chairs?
Yeah, man, they're living the life. I talk to them every now and then on Facebook, just a little comment on a picture or something, or they'll comment on pictures of my kids or whatever, but they seem to be doing well.
Good for them.
Yeah.
What was your interactions with them like on the race? Any alliances with Meredith and Gretchen? How competitive? Were they secretly super competitive?
I didn't take that away from them. I mean, it was kind of neat to watch them on the show because you would hear Gretchen say little things that would just crack me up, because I just never saw that super competitive side of her. But, she'd make these little comments in the interviews and stuff that they'd play. And so that was always funny to watch because I just never saw that side of her. But no, they were always just really kind, and they were just very sweet to me. I've mentioned a couple of times about this child abuse shelter in South Carolina, but one of the things that happened in my life right before I went on to film the show, my best friend was murdered out in California.
Oh.
And so I was dealing with all that personally and almost didn't go on the show because of that. But because her murder actually became a pretty big national news story. And so I was doing a lot of interviews and doing the media for her family. And so I was, Gretchen actually talked with me about that a lot and was a big comfort because I was still kind of dealing with that emotionally, while I was on the show. And so to me, she was just kind of, like I said, like this grandmother that would just kind of put her arm around you and talk to you. And I really enjoyed them.
Yeah, they just seem like one of the nicest teams that we've probably seen on the race.
I think so. I mean, I can't say enough really about everybody that was on our season. I really just enjoyed everybody. Everybody's personalities were unique. We were different. We all had different backgrounds, but it was just really neat to get to know all of them. But Gretchen and Meredith were pretty special, at least to me. I just felt like they were always kind. And, Gretchen really would, anytime we were kind of at a downtime, she would walk over and just say, "How are you doing?" you okay? And I just really appreciate that in her.
You guys also had another, the first time appearing team member in your cast. It was the first time you guys had the Travelocity roaming gnome. If I'm not mistaken, you and Ron were the first roaming gnome winners.
Yes, that was the time we came in last, and so we needed a big boost of something because we didn't win anything when we came in first in Botswana. I remember like standing on the mat in Botswana like, and are you going to give us a prize? And we never got a prize. And so it was kind of funny and ironic, I guess, to come in last in Turkey, but we won the Travelocity prize. And I'm really thankful for that Travelocity prize. It paid for my honeymoon, and I got to go on another trip out to California with it. So it was a great prize.
Did production provide you with a gnome to take with you on the trip?
No, we had to find them. It was a part of one of the tasks. Like the one in Turkey, we didn't have a gnome, I don't think, any other time. But when we were in Turkey, if I remember correctly, just one of the end of the clues said something like, go find a gnome. I mean, I'm sure it said more, but we just picked up a random gnome that we saw, and then he traveled with us the rest of that leg.
But after the race was over and you went out to California, they didn't give you a gnome to take with you?
No, and I'm upset about that. I could sit it right now, like on our, just on display at the house and have lots of stories to tell. But no gnome. It could go out in my front yard. I mean, yeah, they should have. That would have been awesome.
The gnome has been on some crazy adventures as of the end of season 30. It has gone to 13 countries and 5 continents. It is still...
He's still on the race. He's lasted longer than me.
Yeah, people are upset that Rob and Amber get all this time on CBS shows, but this roaming gnome, he gets to appear almost every season.
Yeah.
15 years later.
I need to get our group together.
About that?
Yeah, I was going to say, I need to get our group together then, and we need to start dialoguing about this gnome and how we're going to take him down.
Oh, yes. I'm sure getting into the business of kidnapping gnomes will sure make some headlines. So people are complaining about you on Facebook 13 years later. I can't help but wonder what would happen if you started kidnapping Travelocity Amazing Race roaming gnomes.
Yeah. It wouldn't be too good for my character.
I had a question, but then I got distracted by gnomes. During your guys' season, you guys still had the yield twist where you could yield another team, and then they went through a couple of other they switched over to doing the U-turn a few seasons after you guys were on the show, which means you have to do both sides of a detour instead of just stopping for half an hour. Did you prefer having to just get stopped for half an hour? Because then you and Ron got to try out your artistic skills on certain pictures on the yield board.
I forgot about that. Oh yeah, we got yielded. That did we get yielded in London?
Yes.
Okay, yeah, I remember that now because it was before the double decker.
Yeah, it was right at the Millennium Dome.
Yeah, man, I remember being pretty frustrated with it, that we just had to make the best of it, I guess, because we had that little short penalty. Now, I'm trying to remember if we ever exercised a yield against someone else. Did we do the one against Rob and Amber?
I don't think so. I'm going to have to quickly look to Wikipedia.
Yeah.
Where all the great Amazing Race information is. Let's see. I don't think there was really another... No, you guys had 3 yields during your season, but doesn't look like the first 2 yields were used. It was just the one with Rob and Amber yielding you and Ron. The other 2 went unused.
Well, I guess that's just me remembering that they did that to us. But yeah, I remember now our little artwork.
You gave Rob a nice goatee, if I'm not mistaken. I think you gave Amber
some devil horns, I think. Yep. It's all coming back now.
If you guys if the U-turned you instead, you would just have to go straight to the next task. You wouldn't have had time to broadcast your artistic skills for the world to see.
That's right. Nah, I guess the yield in some ways is not as bad as having to turn around and go somewhere because I guess the detour could be really far away. Some of our detours were not close by at all.
So switching detour tasks was a lot less ideal back in your guys' season because nowadays there's smaller budget, so they tend to keep detour tasks really close together. So was it like several hours to get between some of the detour tasks?
I only remember that being the case for some of them. Now, I remember when we were in Africa, there was a detour task where you could milk a goat or you could walk with a basket on your head. And those were like almost side by side in the same area. So that would have been really easy because you would have been right there. But some of them, yeah, that we did were not in the same location. And I don't really know where some of the other locations were, but that's kind of what made the race really intense, I think, sometimes because you really didn't know when you made that choice. Were you going farther away? Were you doing something close? You really didn't know when you made that choice because you couldn't see what the other teams were doing if they didn't choose your task.
Did you guys ever switch what detour you did?
We did switch in Africa. I remember that as I was talking about it. We started off trying to do the baskets, and I could not do it. I could not believe it. I could not walk with the basket on my head. So we ended up milking goats. And I'm trying to remember what other detours were out there. I feel like we switched one other time. I'm trying to remember what it was. I can't even remember all the detours. I should have gone back and watched all the episodes and squirmed a whole lot before before we did this, so then I would remember everything.
And Michael and I couldn't help but figure out the irony that this is dating the podcast for future listeners. But John McCain just had his funeral service yesterday, so the timing just couldn't be more ironic for this podcast.
Yes. Well, let the record show. I love our military, and I really appreciate the sacrifice that our military and their families make. And man, I just hate that it came out that way. But obviously, some people still watch it 13 years later and they get angry about it. So
notice how Logan said it was ironic as well.
Oh. That's a good one.
They actually brought up your brothers came a little bit of a storyline on the season during one of your fights with Ron, because you guys had a spat over the way Ron was treating you. I think it was in the middle or towards the end of the season when Ron said he wasn't used to having to be teammates with women or something like that. I can't remember the exact details of that argument.
I don't either. Now I'm getting really curious. I'm gonna have to go back and watch again.
Because there was something about how none of your brothers would have treated you the way that Ron was treating you at the time, and how he said he could be less emotional if he was there with one of his war buddies or something like that.
Yeah, it is true. I mean, I think sometimes when you see like family members competing together, like siblings or like parent-child, it is a whole lot different dynamic. I mean, it really is, I think, than being like a married couple or a dating couple. Because I think that you can say something to your family member in the heat of the moment and it doesn't sting quite as bad. You can get over it a lot more quickly, I think. But it is a different dynamic, I think, when you go with somebody that you're dating or married to.
Especially when, like, with a family member, there's that certain level of, well, no matter what, you're stuck with each other forever.
Right.
While
that unconditional
dating or married
love.
couples, that could potentially change.
Right. So yeah, I remember looking at Brian and Greg and just seeing, how they could be competitive but still just have a great time together. And I remember thinking like, that's really probably one of the best ways to do the show is like with a sibling, because you do have that unique dynamic where you can get mad at each other, but you're over it quickly.
Yes, it can be. If I ran the race with one of my brothers, it would, it wouldn't be the same. It wouldn't be the same as the dynamic seen with some of the dating couples over the years, or at least I hope not. Otherwise, it'd get really weird.
Yeah, the dating couples bring a lot of the drama to the show. That's for sure.
Actually, with your guys' season, a lot of the dating couples didn't really stay together after the show was over, because you and Ron, I guess, were pretty much broken up before the race, and then you have Uchenna and Joyce and Ray and Dina split too, right?
They did, unfortunately. Yeah, that was hard for me just after the race because I just really got to love all of those couples. But yeah, unfortunately, not many of us made it. Rob and Amber made it, and I don't know how Lynn and Alex are doing. I have not talked to them at all.
Yeah, I was about to ask. I haven't read anything about them being split up anywhere on the interwebs, and I presume that Meredith and Gretchen are still happy together. They didn't divorce at 80.
Together. Nope, still hanging in together.
No seniors divorce court.
No. But yeah, that it does make it hard. But I don't know that it's people split because of the race or anything. It's just life in general. But yeah.
Were you surprised by how quickly Debbie and Bianca went from being front runners to being out really early on in the race?
Yeah, I was shocked because I could tell that they were pretty intelligent. They were pretty smart ladies, and so when we got to talk to them, at different times, I remember thinking like, man, they're going to be a force to be reckoned with because they're really smart, and it just goes to show that's kind of what I think makes the Amazing Race so special is that, it's just one little thing, one little wrong decision could totally change the outcome of the leg of the race, and it could happen to anybody. And that's why I think the show is so unique because really it gives everybody the chance to win. So I think it's pretty cool in that way. But yeah, I was shocked they were out early, and I think everybody was shocked that we lasted so long.
Especially after that first leg where you just survived, what was it, about 10 seconds away from being eliminated first?
I think so. It felt that way. Well, and it might have not even been 10 seconds because they were just right after us. And I remember that they had to, as we were on the mat, they were basically standing there, So I don't know. I think it was even shorter than 10 seconds.
And then you don't get to go to India and all the other things that help impact your future.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. And I hate it for Ryan and Chuck. Each person who gets eliminated, they go to what we call Sequesterville. And I think our team ended up going to Cancun, if I remember correctly. Of course, I never got to go to Cancun, thankfully, because I made it to the end. But I remember seeing Ryan and Chuck we all came back together in Miami. And I kept saying, well, I really hate it that, you guys got eliminated. But at least, you got a great vacation. And Ryan looked over, or no, it was Chuck. Chuck looked over at me and he's like, if you had to roll over at Cancun and look at this guy next to you, that is not a vacation. They were so funny. They were ready to be home at that point because I think it had been like 6.5 weeks.
And they could have added, not only could they speak Portuguese, but after 6 weeks in Cancun, now they can also speak Spanish.
That's right. That's right. But yeah. That was a pretty intense ending, and then for us to go on and make it up further. And now, I mean, you've just boosted my ego, letting us know that we finished in the top. Our percentages were pretty good.
Yeah, you just dropped that first leg. You guys never finished below fourth place all season long, and you would have had the best average on the season.
Yeah, I guess after almost losing that first one, we didn't want to make it close at all anymore.
For the DVD commentary, a bunch of teams were asked back to do DVD commentary. Were you and Ron ever contacted to do the commentary?
I was contacted, and I'm trying to remember what happened there. I don't know if Ron was contacted, but I know I was, and I don't remember why. What didn't work out there? I'm not sure. Maybe he couldn't do it, so they wouldn't let us do it if we did it separately. I'm not sure. I don't remember what happened there.
They wanted the whole team together rather than just one person from the team?
I think so. I don't really remember, though, what they said, but I just remember that being said another time at some other kind of interview that CBS said that they always prefer it to be a team and not just one person.
And now, of course, fast forward all these years later, where now we've had 2 seasons based around singles being paired up together, having a complete strangers race.
Yeah.
At least on the plus side, you don't have to then rewatch the episodes.
That's right. That's right. But that's a pretty cool concept, because I told you, I haven't seen some of the newer ones that are out, but I've always thought it would be fun to go back and take people who've raced in the past and just put them like with random partners, with different backgrounds. Like I used to make a joke about, now I'm a Baptist preacher's wife. Well, then put me with like a Lynn or an Alex, who has totally different background and different thoughts and beliefs about things than me, and see how that team works together. I always thought something like that would be really fun to watch.
I smell a sitcom. In terms of that last leg, did production ever say if it wasn't for that flight disadvantage, if you guys would have won the race? Because after season 11, now what they do is they have the final 3 teams always take the exact same flight to the final city. No one ever gets separated between multiple flights anymore. Did production ever say if you guys would have won that final leg just based on how long it took to complete the tasks around Miami?
No, they never said, but we actually never completed the task. We never found, I don't remember the exact clue, but I think we were looking for like a cigar shop in Miami. I just remember it had something to do with a king, like the translation of the store had something to do with a king, and I think it turned out to be some kind of cigar shop, if I remember correctly. But we could never find that shop. We went around and around and around, and finally production came to us, and they were like, just get in the car.
Time's up.
Yeah.
We want to go home.
Yes. And I was just like, no, tell me no, because I think in my mind, I probably knew it was over when we didn't catch that flight. But, with the race, they always have these little twists and turns. So sometimes something may, change. And so I just didn't want to give up. But man, when we got in that car, the floodgates were on. I just cried and cried and cried because, it was kind of sad too that it was coming to an end. But man, what an experience. But yeah, we didn't even get to finish that last task because they just walked over and said, get in the car. So I don't really know. I have a feeling that it was probably, we were already really late because of our flight. And then the fact that we didn't just find that shop, I feel like we looked for it for at least 30 minutes. And I think they were just like, that's it, get in the car.
Oh, Jen and Joyce have already cashed their check.
Yeah. But man, that was fun, to run in and see everybody there. Of course, at that time, we didn't know who had won. So that was kind of my thing, is like, who was it, Robin Amber or Joyce Nuchenna? So that was kind of fun to see that it was Joyce Nuchenna.
Were you bummed out that you didn't get to clap for Uchenna and Joyce along with the other teams at the finish line?
Yeah, that part is a little odd. Like, I remember thinking, like, it's so strange that we're coming in at the end, We're last, but yet everybody's standing out here for us. But it would have been exciting to see them run in. But I got to watch it on TV.
It's like you get to watch the party from afar without being there from the start.
Yes, that's true. That's true. But it was really cool, just to see everybody's faces there. It was good. That is one thing I've thought about before after losing. We did come in at the end, but everybody was there, and that was kind of special. Just to, everybody I think kind of felt bad for us too, because they knew how everybody there wants to win. They know how it was just so deep in our hearts to just try so hard and to win. And, I think they could just all relate to what we were feeling, coming in third. And so that was kind of sweet, though, to have all of them there and just come up and hug us and clap for us and, kind of give us our own respect, too, in some ways of just making it to the end. And that was pretty special.
Yeah, everyone being very supportive of one another after a long, hard-fought battle.
Yes, yeah. After that filming was over that night, we basically had a big party all together with Bertram, and then Phil was there, and then all of us are there, and it was, that was just fun to we all kind of knew it was our last time we were going to be together for a while, so that was just fun to be with everybody and to talk and catch up and hear what everybody had been doing while we had been racing. And, it was an incredible experience. And man, oh man, I wish they'd ask me again.
No one got too carried away with the drinks at the ending party at the end. No one had any, no one wanted to blow some steam.
I didn't notice, but I'm sure some of it was happening, but I think I was still just kind of in this daze of, I cannot believe this is over and this is it. I was really at that point just trying to take it in, because it had hit me that it was over and that we were all not going to be together. So to me, it was kind of like I was going to try to soak up my time with my friends, that I had met. And so that's kind of really where I was focused that night.
What was your favorite country or task to do on the Amazing Race?
Now, I really, really did love the double-decker bus that we've talked about, but I think one that I really enjoyed was racing the camel carts in India. It was just fun to fly around and just the wind going in your face and just to race the camels. It was just a unique experience, and that was probably one of my most fun memories, was doing the elephant task. But of course, I really did love the double-decker bus, and I love to be able to tell people that I've done that. One of the craziest things that I've done.
Do you think a professional camel racer could outrun the double-decker bus?
If I was driving, yes, he could outrun the double-decker bus.
And of course, the elephants would be finishing in third place in a race like that. Yes.
Especially if they were having to push him. I didn't do that task, but some of our team had to push this large wooden elephant down the street. Isn't that right?
Yep.
Yeah.
I think Meredith and Gretchen had to rely on a lot of locals.
Yeah. What I remember most from that is Gretchen going, Meredith! Just her screaming his name. And that was one of the funniest episodes to me, to watch her do that.
And I can't help but ask, but what thing reminded you guys of Baghdad the most on the race? Because editors love to throw that in there. What was the most Baghdad-y thing to have happen?
Baghdad. Well, because I've not ever experienced Baghdad, I'll just have to go with Ron, on all of his experiences. But now that I've been to India many times, I've had other people that have been over to the Middle East say that India is very, very similar to the Middle East. So I'll have to go with our time in India will probably be the most Baghdad-y experience.
Yeah, I don't know if it would be Baghdad-y or Baghdad-ish. That's another question for Ron, I guess.
Yeah, now Baghdad-y sounds pretty cool.
Almost sounds like a new instrument.
That's right. A hip-hop name.
Yeah, hip-hop name, yes. That's MC Baghdad-y. Performing at a venue near you in South Carolina. I think you guys did an exit interview about this after your time on the show, but you guys pretty much laughed at how many clips they aired of Ron referencing Baghdad.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, we did laugh about it. I mean, it is funny just to go back and, like I said, you come away with one experience and you watch it on TV and you have a whole new experience. And yeah, it is funny about how many things that they used, or even that he said, but that was a fresh experience for him. So I guess that's just why it was always on the forefront of his mind.
And I assume they couldn't play this on the show, but I presume that Ron loved to listen to the song Bombs Over Baghdad by Outkast, because that would have been a hit song back in 05.
Back then. I don't know. I don't remember him jamming to that one in the car very much, but, maybe he was working out to it and I didn't know.
I hear that Andre 3000 is ideal workout music in the gym. Oh yeah, well, you guys had another really cool cultural experience on the race. Anytime they go there, it's kind of cool. So Soweto in South Africa. Yeah, how was that? That was with I think that's when you guys actually go to the orphanage where the kid accidentally gets kicked in the face by a soccer ball.
Yes, that was a pretty amazing experience. In fact, I remember now really going into that orphanage was the first time in my mind on the race that I remember kind of saying to myself, like, you need to chill out. Like this, you are here competing, for $1 million and you're trying to win this race, but there is real life happening, all around you. And these kids are here in Africa in this orphanage. I really appreciate that experience. Because I kind of think that was almost the start for me to just really start to open my eyes and take in the world around me. So I really appreciate the opportunity to go into that orphanage. And it was really neat, that CBS had brought them a lot of gifts and items. And just to be a part of that was special. But that for me is kind of the first time I think I took a deep breath. Because I remember South America for me is a blur. I mean, it is a blur in my mind. I don't know if it was just because it was the beginning and I was just trying to find my footing, and we had almost lost that first one. And so I was just trying really hard to try to stay ahead of the game kind of thing. But I remember we were in Argentina and we had this task where we were riding horses, and I think we were trying to like joust a ring or something. I just remember we had some task on a horse. And I remember coming off that horse and we get in the car and we get towards the end and we get to the pit stop, and everybody is sitting there talking and they're like, man, that view in Argentina. And I just look at everybody. I'm like, what are you talking about? And they're like, when we were riding the horses, did you not see that view? And I never saw it. I never took in what was around me. I never saw it was the Andes Mountains behind us. I never saw it one time because I was just so in the mode of competing that I didn't really look around. So really, when we went into that orphanage in South Africa, it was kind of the first time I really feel like I just took a deep breath, and all of a sudden reality hit me, like, you're doing this and you are getting the experience of a lifetime and you're missing it. You're missing all of these things around you. And so really going to the orphanage kind of helped me just take it all in. So I'm really appreciative of that experience.
Yeah, I can see the start of the race where everything is quite a blur, but I should add that if you ask anybody from Chile and anybody from Argentina, that I don't think they would like their countries being referred to as something that's the same and can be blurred together. They take their unique cultures very, very, very seriously, just knowing from personal experience.
But just all those legs that were in South America, when we started in Peru and just went through. I mean, I can remember things about it, but I don't really remember a whole lot of scenery around me. I can remember the race parts, but I wish I would have been able to really enjoy what was around me when I was in all of those countries.
I assume that the adrenaline and competition level is just through the roof at the start of the race.
Oh, yes. Oh, yeah. I mean, my brain was going like on overdrive. And, like I said, I think that I had just had the wrong mindset going in, that you were just going to have to be physically tough. And, I was kind of thinking like, you're going to have to be able to run fast and beat people to things. And really, there's not that much speed work involved. I mean, it pops up every now and then in the race, obviously, like the leg race to the mats, but it's really very mental. And so that part for me, I think I was just trying to readjust the whole time we did that, the 3 different legs in South America. And, I hate that it was a blur, because I just hate that I missed some of the beautiful scenery around me.
Yeah, when you can't I guess it's almost like tunnel vision, where you just can't access all the memories and being able to take anything in.
Mm-hmm. And well, I was kind of almost just like hyper-focused, just hyper-focused on the race and getting the tasks done and just trying to stay ahead, that, I mean, I could not see anything else around me. And I hate that. I mean, because really, I got to see it on TV, I guess, that part. But really, it was not until the orphanage that all of a sudden I just realized you're missing everything around you. There is real life and a real world happening, and you're missing it. And so I really am thankful for the orphanage part, because it did just kind of open my eyes. I mean, we even did a zip line. I think that was in Peru, if I remember correctly.
The first leg, you guys did a zip line. How about you?
I didn't notice anything about it. I was just on the zip line and there to accomplish a task. And I hate that. Like, I hate that. That's just one of the things that, I learned through this experience was just, to stop and enjoy what's around you. But I mean, even that zip line, which was just in this incredible place, I just did not even notice it was around me. I was just there to ride the zip line and get finished.
You're on a mission.
Yes.
There is one particular scene with you and Ron that still sticks out to me after all that time, which is the fight you guys had in Botswana where you accused of Ron swearing at you.
Yes. I remember that.
Did he actually say anything like that, or was that what?
Well,
or
I really believe he did. Now, did I hear something differently? Could I have misheard? Possibly. But I mean, I really believe he told me, to shut up in not a very nice way. And, so that kind of started the fight that I think people saw in the car, where I think I called him a redneck piece of trash. So.
Yeah, you guys love to up the ante during that argument.
Yes. I, like I said, I learned a lot about myself and things that I definitely want to do different. But yeah, and even, he will say to this day that he didn't say that. Well, I don't know what he would say to this day because I don't really communicate with him. But I remember, while we were there on the race, he would say, I really didn't say that. And so I could have misheard him. But at the time, I really thought that he, said something in a very rude way to me. So, I did take it very personally when it happened. But at the same time, when you're in the heat of the moment of the race and the family dynamic that I grew up in, we're pretty aggressive. We say exactly what we're feeling and thinking, which is not always like super healthy. But, we communicate. And in my family dynamic, we also were immediately forgiving and over it. Like you kind of got what off of your chest, what was on your chest. But then, 10 minutes later, you're fine, because you're family. And so I think I learned a lot about my communication style on the race, and also learned that, not everybody operates that way. Sometimes people don't like, to be talked to that way, or they're not, quick to forgive. And so, I just learned a lot about that. But yeah, I remember that little argument in the car.
Yeah, there's been no on the trips to India. There's never been telling somebody to shut the F up along the way.
No, those words don't come out of my mouth. So no, and it is funny because I travel with my husband quite a bit, and we don't talk to each other that way. But maybe if we were in a highly competitive race, I could get pretty intense. But my husband knows how to handle me. We just have the right personality. But yeah, he travels the world with me, and we don't fight.
Yeah, not until Phil Kogan appears.
That's right. That's right.
You see Phil Kogan just happening to go by in India. That's gonna that would switch the dynamic instantly.
Now I will tell you, he laughs at me, and I've gotten better about this too. But when we would travel together, because we started dating pretty soon after the show. Well, yeah, after the show was filmed, we started dating pretty soon. And then, soon after we're married and we're traveling together, and he's like, you don't have to run. Like, you don't have to run in the airport. Like, I did not even realize it, but I would just be like sprinting or speed walking everywhere I was going. Like when we were traveling places. And I would be like, yes, we do. That's what, you have to be in a hurry. You have to beat all these people. And he would just laugh. He's like, yeah, we're not in the Amazing Race. We are going on a vacation, so we don't have to run. So,
cut the line.
But it took a little while to kind of get out of that mode. And I've even taken a group of people with me from church over to India. And we had this layover in London where we got delayed a lot longer than we had planned to be there. So I told everybody, like, let's go out and see the city. And I mean, I was bound and determined I was going to see things in London that I had not seen before, because, when you go on the race, you don't get to see everything unique about each city and place. And so everybody who was with me, they were like, we're leaving you. You are a mad person, because I was just like hauling, I was like sprinting, trying to get to the palace, trying to get to Big Ben, trying to get to all these places. And they eventually just got on a bus and went back to the airport. And Only my husband and one other friend could hang with me the rest of the time because I was just going after it. So I still travel pretty hard sometimes.
Do you feel like it's against the rules to ever travel first class on any of your flights? Do you feel like we shouldn't be doing this?
No, well, that's because I could not afford a first class flight. So I think at this point I'd welcome a first class ticket somewhere. But I got to travel first class one time, I think, after the show. And I thought, man, this is pretty nice. And it made me think about Ray and Dina when I think on one flight they talked their way into, I think it might even been to Africa or leaving Africa, but it was a long flight, and they talked their way into getting into first class, and they got these sleeper chairs. I don't know if y'all remember seeing that. But that one time I rode in first class, I thought, man, I should have done that. That was the way to travel right there.
Was there any injuries or troubles with the law that any of the teams had that we didn't get to see on the show?
I don't remember any. I mean, we talked about Gretchen's face when she had that horrible fall. And I'm trying to remember if anybody else got hurt. Even in the wreck, I don't really remember the boys getting hurt too bad. No, I can't think of any.
So it was like everyone was able to get through relatively unscathed?
Yeah, I think so. Now, one time I think this was Peru. Of course, the law was not involved, but I guess they could have gotten involved. I didn't know it, but we stayed in a brothel. So that was...
Stayed in a brothel?
Yes. We were waiting to catch our next flight, and so everybody was just kind of on your own. And so we just kind of like, this looks like a little side street hotel kind of thing. And so we pulled went in to just try to get some rest. And I did not know until we left that it was a brothel.
Was it clean, good accommodations?
Yeah. I mean, it was pretty decent, and so I didn't think anything. I just kind of thought I was, staying in a room in Peru, and that's just what it was. But it wasn't until after that we were talking to our production crew, and they started putting it together for us, and we were like, "What?"
Did you at least leave a good review on Yelp or Travelocities or Brothel World saying, hey, 5 out of 5, clean facilities, staff was too friendly, maybe too friendly.
That's hilarious. But yeah, that was kind of a unique experience that, at the time we didn't know that was happening or what was going on. And like I said, all of the legs in South American countries for me were kind of a blur, but I remember laughing about that because I had no clue.
Yeah, we've heard I think 4 seasons ago, their first pit stop. This was what production arranged for them, was in like a Japanese office where guys were looking at porn and stuff. So amazingly enough, you guys haven't had the dirtiest or slimiest accommodation overall in the history of the Amazing Race.
Well, that's good to know.
What was the coolest behind the scenes moment or most memorable behind the scenes moment that we never really got to see?
I think for me, it was in Botswana. We stayed in this incredible Kauai River Lodge. And I mean, that was just that mandatory rest period. We got to go on a safari together. We, just hanging out with the teams that were still in it was pretty special. But just the environment itself, I mean, we stayed in what I would call these glamping kind of tents, that basically had these bedrooms inside. But you would go out on the porch from your tent, and there would just be elephants and hippopotami just all out in the water in front of you. And you could hear the tigers at night roaring or the lions roaring. And, oh man, that was pretty incredible. And I remember thinking, I will probably never get to do this ever again. So soak it up. And oh man, that was a pretty incredible experience.
Did they give you the longer 36-hour pit stop in both of the Botswana legs?
Yes, that one was the long one. And then we had another long one in Argentina. And I remember a little bit about that. We stayed at this polo club, and that was the first time I guess we really started to get to know people better, just because you had a longer period of time just to get to know each other outside of a competitive situation. But I just remember it had the swimming pool, and I remember that Brian and Greg were swimming, and people were trying to just watch movies and just talk. It was just a good time. But the Botswana one, definitely for me personally, was just pretty cool to have all the animals around. And then we were supposed to get to, in South Africa, we were supposed to get to sleep. I think they call it the pans, where you're just like kind of out in this open field and you sleep on these metal beds. It's the episode where Ray and Dina got eliminated.
Yes, in Botswana, they said that on the show that you guys were supposed to be sleeping on the metal beds out in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah, but then there was a horrible storm, and so we didn't get to stay. And I really hate that we didn't get to experience that, because, you know, we end that leg, we get there, and you see all these beds out there, you know, out in the middle of this just dirt desert area it just kind of looks like this dry bush, I guess, area. And you see all those beds, and you're thinking, this is where I'm sleeping for the night. And the crew was going on to explain, you know, that people pay a lot of money to experience that, because the animals and the wildlife come out at night and you can hear them. And I really wish that we could have experienced that, but it was a horrible storm. And then so we all ended up sleeping under this big canopy tent together on the ground. I think everybody was just sleeping on the ground. And Ron woke up that morning with a scorpion on his chest.
Oh, you have a mascot for your team.
Yeah. Yeah. So that was an interesting experience, but man, I wish we could have slept out there in those beds and heard all the wildlife and just gotten to experience that too. That would have been pretty cool. But then when we stayed in that river lodge, it was pretty special just to see all of the animals and just to see a piece of Africa. And they had some people that worked there at the lodge that kind of did some cultural dances and different things for us. And it was just really special.
Let's see. What do you want the fans to know the most about your experience on The Amazing Race? Or maybe what was the most misunderstood thing about your experience on The Amazing Race?
I think that I would like people to know that I do love the military.
Number one.
Yeah.
That's number 1 and 2 and 3 on the list.
Yes, and maybe I'm not so crazy. I don't know. My husband may tell you that, no, she's pretty crazy. But just, you know, I don't know. I just feel like when you're out there, everybody's pretty competitive. It gets heated, and everybody who is out there is definitely being competitive with one another and competitive with their teammates. And maybe not everything you see when it airs is always exactly as it was. And because what you don't see is, like, you know, teams that maybe argue with each other, then high five each other, you know, when we cross over the mat and we're sitting down having dinner together and laughing, that sort of thing. So it's not always as it seems, I guess. But man, oh man, it was an incredible experience, and I'm grateful for it. And I feel like it changed me a lot as a person. And I'm so thankful for it, because it really just opened my heart to the world, and especially to a country that I never imagined myself going to, having a child from as well. And, you know, now I couldn't imagine my life any other way than going to India twice a year and helping orphans. And man, it was just awesome. So I don't care if I looked like a horrible person. I would do it again.
And I guess one of the big questions I have is, if Brian and Gray got that non-elimination when they showed up to the pit stop with just the toque and the boxers on, would the other teams feel inclined to help them on the next leg, or would everybody just view them as a big threat and not want to give them a shirt or anything, and just see if Botswana Customs would even let them leave the country?
That would have been pretty funny. Nah, I think most of the teams, you know, are pretty generous and helpful. So I really think that somebody would have loaned them some clothes somewhere along the way. At least I think I would have helped them out if possible. Maybe some of the other teams, you know, would have been thinking ahead further, you know, about how competitive they were. But you can't help but love Brian and Greg. They were just fun to be around. They always made you laugh. So I can imagine everybody wanting to help them out.
Did you have any alliances during the race?
I don't know that we really had any formal alliances. I mean, I feel like we were kind of with Rob and Amber a lot. I don't even know that a lot, but I feel like we were kind of near them a lot. But I don't really feel like Rob and Amber shared any valuable information with us either. That I can remember, like something that really helped us in the race. I don't really remember that. Sometimes I feel like definitely towards the beginning of the race, we would just kind of try to make sure we kept an eye on him, because he's just shrewd, he just knows how to think ahead and to think in that way that puts him above other people. And so I just kept an eye on him. Ron kept an eye on him, and we just tried to kind of make sure that we weren't missing out on something that Rob was already thinking of. But I feel like a lot of people thought we had an alliance with them because we were close with them, but they never really helped us, gave us any kind of information that helped us.
Do you still keep in contact with all of the teams from your season?
Not all of them. Mainly, Facebook has been great for that because we can kind of keep up with each other. A good bit of the team did help me a lot with the fundraiser for the child abuse shelter in South Carolina. But I mainly probably communicate most probably with Ray and Dina the most. And Ray and Dina actually came to our wedding, and I just kind of communicate with them more on Facebook than anybody. I've talked to Uchenna probably a couple of years ago, and just kind of here and there, but I don't talk to them nearly as often as I would like. But it is nice that we can kind of keep up with each other on Facebook and see what each person's doing.
Do you talk to anybody that isn't from your season?
No, not really. I did have a couple of people from other seasons ended up coming and helping us as well with our fundraiser for the child abuse shelter. And that was Jonathan and Victoria weren't they season 5 or were they season 4?
6.
Oh, sorry, season 6. And then Brennan, I think I'm saying that right, the first winner from season 1, right? Is his name Brennan? He came and helped. And so really those are the only ones that I've kind of talked to outside of seasons. But there's like Facebook groups and everything with us on them. And so I'll just kind of see what everybody's doing through that. But I don't really have any kind of personal relationship with other racers.
Right. Okay. We have a couple of rapid fire questions.
Okay.
Our first one is, who is your favorite member of Backstreet Boys and NSYNC?
Okay, well, NSYNC for sure is JT. Backstreet Boys, I'm like, I don't even know who the Backstreet. I mean, I know who the Backstreet Boys are, but I don't know who they are individually because they were a little bit behind me, and so was NSYNC, I guess, in some ways. But I knew more about NSYNC because of my younger sister.
She helped you keep be hip and with it.
Yes. I'm looking at the Backstreet Boys picture now to try to see if I remember one sticking out, but no, nobody's really sticking out.
Nick Carter looks the same as Aaron Carter. Who would win a fight between a baboon and a badger?
I'm going to go with a baboon.
A baboon. Why?
Yeah.
That's always been a common answer. Everyone goes with the baboon.
Well, in India, they have a lot of monkeys. And I've seen some angry monkeys get into some fights on the street, and I've seen some attack some people, and they're pretty ferocious. So I'm going to go with the baboon on that one.
Yeah, they just know how to take it to the ground like an MMA fighter.
That's right.
And the one that we always ask each time, I don't know why. I don't even know how this tradition started because we always ask this to the male contestants as well. But are you pregnant?
No, but I wish I was. I would love to have more children, and my husband says, no way, 5 is enough. We are good with 5, but no, I'm not pregnant.
I think my parents said the same thing, but I just happened to be the fifth one that was born. For some reason, after number 5, the line stopped.
There's something, y'all are just so special. The number 5s are so special. They just don't want to do anything to ruin that.
Yeah, I'm sure Lou Bega probably stops after number 5 as well.
Well, I really appreciate you guys giving me a chance to just talk about something that was so fun in my life, and you just bring back a lot of really good memories.
And hopefully it changes the dreams you have in the future where you dream of winning the Amazing Race.
Yes, I'll message you and let you know if it changes.
Yeah. I just crossed the finish line. Phil said 10 countries, 20,000 miles, 13 cities.
Yes. Yeah, that would be pretty awesome.
And in the background, your son can score a touchdown.
There you go. It can all work out. And there'll be a unicorn and happy thoughts.
Anything else you'd like to add before we close things out, Kelly?
No, but thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Thank you for joining us.
Yes, thank you for your time today.
Yeah, well, I think my family is waiting on me. We're going to go celebrate with some friends tonight over a bonfire, but we're not going to be eating 6 pounds of barbecue.
No?
No.
Oh, man. Did Rob fly in and talk you guys down to only eating 2 or 3 pounds? Or just wait around and do nothing for 4 hours?
Yeah. Y'all just sit here with us and let us get ahead of you.
Okay, Michael, would you like to close this out?
Well, thank you very much for listening to this interview series. You can join us next time for Podcast Game Night, I guess, is the next one, isn't it?
Number 250?
If you've got any questions, feel free to contact us on our Facebook page, Reality TV Warriors, and our Twitter account, RTV Warriors, our own Twitter pages, MJ Amson for me, and like us for Quacky for Logan. See you next time.
Peace out and just chill till the next episode.